right. Well, welcome back. Um, yes, I had so much fun yesterday with that little figure. I'm going to have to bring him in from time to time, liven things up and add a little company here. Anyway, yeah, that was so much fun. And again, thank you for the questions. I did answer them on the videos. I always see like it pops up whatever is new, and so I just answer them as they come along. So I answered them all. You can just check back and see what the replies are on those older videos from yesterday. And they're short and easy answers, so I didn't have to launch into a long thing about it. Anyway, yeah. Yeah. So, and then I don't mind, this sort of thing. I mean, there are a lot of people who look at the videos, but hardly anybody comments. So if I have one main subscriber, that's fine. And they ask questions and I answer them. I'm just going to interact with the people that are interacting there with me. And, um, you know, just engage with those people. And if that's one person, that's fine with me. That's great. At least it's somebody, right? And then there's Will. No, I'm going to laugh about that for a while. Anyway, he has to have a nice smile, you got to admit. And he's always happy. Every time I buy a box of oatmeal, he's smiling away. In fact, sometimes I just buy the box of oatmeal because of him. But shh, don't tell him that, okay? It's our little secret. Okay. All right, yes, back to some serious business now. So, okay, I have several videos for today. And I never know what's going to happen. Maybe there's nothing, and then all of a sudden there's three, and you know how it goes. So, anyway, uh, so uh, the first one, it just is sort of, this will probably be a short video, and the next one will be longer, the next one too, but it's just a general observation, because I'm thinking about this now, the applications of the Christian faith in our life. Like, how does that look? You know, um, what do we do? What do people see? What's different, right? So, and there's a lot. So, this is giving me material for sure. Um, so, one thing, and this is a good topic to do right now because it kind of ties into some of the stuff that was brought up lately. So, like, now I'm just gonna go over this kind of example, but of course, I'm gonna use me so it's easier that way. So, for instance, as Christians, so it's any Christian, but it's me included for sure. So, like we know, let's say you've been a Christian a while and you're solidly anchored in the Bible. I mean, you don't have to be a scholar, but just the faith. You could share the gospel with somebody and that kind of thing. So you know you know the truth of the faith. Yeah. So and even if you don't know every detail, that's okay. There is such a thing. There is the maybe I should use the whiteboard for this. I had the whiteboard out the other day and I didn't even write anything. I kept thinking I would, and then I just kept talking and it just I did it that way and I never ended up writing anything. So, okay. Okay, so we have this thing, okay? Now it's going to get philosophical. So we have the concept, first of all, the concept of truth, right? We have this concept of, okay, take this, get back to the math, right? 4 plus 4 equals 8. I'm tired of 2 and 2 is 4, so I'm changing it. 4 plus 4 equals 8, right? This is an example of truth, right? So we have a true statement here. There are many examples, right? But whatever it is has to meet the definition that it's true to fall under the category of truth. So I know that was deeply profound, but okay, but it's true. So, all right, so we have the concept of truth, and they're different things, okay? I like using something like this to start out with because it's so basic. I mean, nobody can argue with this. 4 plus 4 equals 8. Yeah, that's it, right? Now, it's also this. It's an absolute, and it's eternal. Eternal. Okay, this is always going to be true, and it's absolutely true. Okay, there's some things that are true in a sort of kind of way, and I'll get there. There's some things that are completely subjective. Okay, so for instance, okay, maybe this will be a longer video. Whoa, my goodness, who knew? Okay, well, all right, we'll be here a while. Okay, take something like opinion. All right, we can have a statement like pink is best. It's the best color. I mean, you hear people saying this kind of thing all the time about anything, and they know they're saying it this way, we all know, but just taking it as a truth value statement, like, pink is best. What you really, if I say this, what I really mean is pink is my favorite color. It might not be your favorite color, it might not be their favorite color, it's somebody's favorite color, right? And so on with all the colors. But you can't really take any one color and say this color is the best color, all right? You might like it best, but that doesn't make it the best color. Okay, so some people know the difference of this stuff and some don't. Wow, my goodness. But like if I say this, I mean it in a way, a subjective way, like it's my favorite color. In my opinion, it's the best color, but how do you say what is the best color, right? It depends. What are we talking about? Are we talking about a rose? Are we talking about a wedding dress? Are we talking about, even then you have different colors for things, but what's the best color for that thing? Maybe there's a better color, but it might, maybe there is no best color. Sometimes there is a best color. If you want the lightest color you can find, the best one would be white, right? So it depends, right? But pink is my favorite color, but I can't say it's the best color, right? It depends what you like, right? So there are things that are subjective, and that's an opinion. Then you have things that are kind of in the middle, right? Like take scientific things. Take gravity, for instance. Okay, you have different planets, right? Right? So if you're on Earth, there's a certain formula, right, for gravity, and it is what it is. And on this planet, it would fit whatever formula that would be truth. If you're on another planet, it would be different, right? Depending on the size and whatever, the magnetism and all those little goodies, right? Okay, then you have the moon. If you're on the moon, the gravity will be different, right? But in that environment, it's going to be what it is. And that's true for that environment. So it there is such a thing as, relative truth in that sense, right? Then you get, okay, the theory of relativity. Okay, that has to do with all kinds of this sort of related gravity and magnetism and all that space and time and all that. So, yeah. So it might be right on this planet, but that formula wouldn't be right on another planet, right? So there are things like this. Okay, so there are all kinds of examples of things like that. Now if you, so with all this in mind, okay, now let's say you come over here and you come to God's word, the Bible. It is the perfect example of truth. Okay, it's true, it's absolute, and it's eternal truth. Now, of course, yes, things have been, kind of, sometimes somebody kind of meddled, let's just say. I gave examples of this where a verse will slip into the footnotes or out of the footnotes, or, kind of, meddled with somehow. The translation isn't as great as it could be. Yes, and I mean, if you get into seminaries and Bible scholars and ones that research translations, and they'll swear by one translation, not another one. So yes, these things can be argued about, but the bottom line, and they always say in the original text, it's perfect, right? So, okay, then you get to, all right, you have to get even deeper than that. You have to get to the original meaning. And there's a Greek word for this. I think it's this, if I remember correctly. This is like the word of God in a sense of what he's speaking at that instant in time. Okay, and then it kind of it goes through things, right? Through stages where it gets written down, it gets translated, this and that, interpretations, somebody, somewhere, something can get corrupted. It gets filtered through levels, right? So when it gets to us, we have what we have, and it's pretty good, okay? But there are people that will hang on this. It's perfect. That's it. I mean, the message is perfect. That's the point. Okay, so this is perfect. It's truth. It's absolute, eternal truth. All that. And God went out of his way to get that to us, and the Bible has that. The main message that's contained in there is redemption. We need to be redeemed, and that's how we get redeemed. It's all in there. So that's the main point, and that is truth. That's absolute, eternal, universal truth. Okay, that applies everywhere, everywhere in the universe. Okay, there's no exception to that. Okay, so we have that about the Bible, and now that's the best perfect example. Okay, so these are just ideas that deal with different levels of this. Okay, now that being said, and I did get through that pretty quickly. Okay, so the next point I want to make is, okay, now take a Christian, any solid Christian. It could be me, it could be whoever, right? And we know what we know. We know the Bible is true. And all the faith is correct, all this kind of thing, and that's the one and only way to be saved. All these things we know. Now, suppose, okay, among ourselves, we know and we discuss this. Now, when you're, let's say, meeting with people somewhere, okay, and it depends on, let's say, if you're evangelizing and you're out in a park and you have signs and you have a table or a booth and you have gospel tracts and maybe some Bibles to hand out. That's the message, and that's the more outspoken sense of this. But let's say you are in a situation where you're meeting with some new friends you met. I don't know how. Okay, they invited you to lunch or whatever, and the Bible says you can go. Okay, all right. So there are rules we have to know. So okay, you go, and now we never compromise the message just because somebody else might not like it, because truth is truth. It's still true, no matter who likes it and who doesn't like it. And we're supposed to, maintain the message and not compromise from that. That's part of our job as being a witness, of Jesus, is, we stick to the gospel. That doesn't mean, let's say and this goes for any setting, but I'm just using this example, like you're meeting with 3 friends at lunch, and, you don't have to come in with a loudspeaker, but it's the setting, right? It's a mild, casual setting. So you all sit down. Suppose it's a lovely spring day and you're at a sidewalk cafe and there are flowers blooming and you're sitting out there, and there's a nice shady blooming tree over you, and you're just having a wonderful time, and you're all talking and you're getting along. And people will talk about anything. So, okay, and I've been in situations like this a lot. That's why I know, I can relate to all kinds of things this way. Now, let's say they don't talk about religion at all. I'm not obligated to talk about my faith, but usually the whole point ultimately is because the main concern is souls. So that's our main mission. At some point, I might slip in something delicately, something about my faith, it could be something like, later today I'm gonna read a certain thing in the Bible and make a video about it, or how about you, what are you doing today? It can be any easy thing, and it's sort of planting a seed and opening a door. They might want to talk more, ask questions, or not, and so we're not pushy if we're doing it right. Again, this is the right way to do it. Okay, like, we're not going to push. You can't push anything on anyone, really. That's just a fact of reality, and it's just politeness. You can't anyway, and everybody has a right to their ideas. We have a right to be wrong. That's how it is in life. So, okay, whatever, if they have their ideas and that's what they want to believe, fine. There's nothing I can do. I can present the gospel. They have a choice to accept or reject it, and that's it. So that's just, within a nice setting of you're being polite, everybody's, nice. And so that's it. If they want to know something later, or something comes up later and they're open later, okay, but there's no point in trying to push something on someone if they don't want it. That's just foolish. I mean, so that's where that would be a dead end, you know. Now, let's say if somebody, so that's that, but let's say somebody would ask me questions in a setting like this, and I don't have to, I'm just, it's free speech, we're not in a restrained environment, where we're just casually meeting. We're all free to talk, that kind of setting. If they ask me questions, I'll answer any question, and sometimes people will get upset if, they don't like the answer. Well, I always give them a little disclaimer. You might not like the answer, but you're asking me, I'm going to give you my answer. So, I'm not going to tailor it to what I think they want to hear, because, see, that would be denying the truth. See, you have to be loyal to the truth and share what that is. And everybody can argue, well, I think the truth is this, and I think the truth is that, or I claim, or I say, or whatever. They can all disagree, but there is still one and only one truth. Not everybody will be aware of what it is because they're contradicting each other, but none of them might know, right? But there's still one truth. And I mean, as Christians, we know, and anybody can argue with that all day, but you just know that you know, and that's it. But so that's kind of how that is. If they share what they believe, if I'm laying low, right? I'm trying to be low key. I don't bring anything up, right? But if they share what they believe, then I'll share what I believe, because I have the same right of sharing and freedom of speech as they do. So I'll just share as well. None of us might like anybody else's beliefs, and we all have that right too, and some people can still be civilized. Some people can even still be friends. Others can't. It depends on the personality, Now, if you are, there's a difference between meeting for lunch and uniting spiritually with someone, right? So you can't unite spiritually with people who you don't agree with in these matters. I could never unite spiritually with people, in some other religion or some really apostate denomination or something like that. Anything else, they have to be at least a Christian, a biblical Christian. So, yeah. But if they're not, I can still meet with them for lunch. I couldn't pray with them. I could pray for them, but I couldn't come in agreement with them in prayer because we're in different places. You can't unite with them spiritually in a sense of like worshiping together knowingly. I don't know who's next to me in church, let's say, but I mean knowingly unite in a spiritual activity when they're in a different place. So, that you can't do. So it depends on what it is, People can cooperate over many things and not be united spiritually. We do this all the time in the workplace, for instance. That's different because it's a different goal. It's a different mission. That's a different thing, And I may still choose to meet with people with the hope that, well, maybe one day they will ask questions and become a Christian. And in the meantime, it can be a friendship. It can be okay. I've had situations like that. As long as they're nice and civilized people, I'm willing to have coffee with them or, talk or take a walk or whatever. But there are some people that are still out of that loop if they're into things that are just too far out there, or they're not nice people, of course, then they're out. So that's kind of how that goes. But we can never compromise on the truth. You can't push it on people, but you can't compromise it either, in a sense. Like if somebody asks you, you have to say it, or if everybody's sharing, you have a right to share that as well about you. The truth is blah blah blah, whatever. You have the same right to share that. And I'm saying all this because there are people out there who think that Christians should just hide under a table when it comes to these matters, and that's totally from the devil. I mean, no, just because you don't come with a sledgehammer and a loudspeaker doesn't mean the other alternative is hiding under a table. No, we're just as bold and assertive as a civilized person would be, any other one, would be, and have the same rights to share as anybody. And you can't, again, push it on people, but you have a right to share what it is and say, this is my belief, or whatever. And just like, with the favorite color thing, like I wouldn't say, okay, well, I'm right and you're wrong, even though I feel that way. I might not say that, or I might say it, depending on if they start arguing with me more in a way, I kind of leave it up to them. If they start arguing, then I'll argue, right? But if they are kind of mellow in that way, I'm not going to be pushy at all. So anyway, there are just all kinds of rules of engagement with this, but the fact is there is a truth, and we as Christians, we stand on it, and we don't back down. We don't waver from our position just because it makes somebody out there uncomfortable. We don't lose our spine just because somebody else doesn't like what we're saying. We don't become cowards over that. That is the opposite of what we should do. So we speak the truth. We're just not pushy, and either they receive it or they don't, and that's it. So we don't go along pretending like to agree with something we don't agree with, because that's a denial. But again, you can be nice about it, but you just don't agree with that, and you make that clear. So that's it. And then there are things like let's say, okay, I respect the rights of others to do things that are, according to the Bible, they're wrong, but I can't tell them, hey, you better knock that off right now. It's not my place to tell them what to do. I can tell them if, it comes up, did you know, by the way, the Bible says this and that about this item, and they take it or leave it, but I can't tell them, what they will and won't or can't do, right? That's just, Anyway, so we have free will for now. We have the right to be wrong or right. That's how it is. But even though, we acknowledge this fact, doesn't mean that we accept what people do, or we, I don't embrace many things, but, I don't accept them in that kind of a way, or any of that, so that's just my stand, but I can't march over there and tell them, now you're going to stop that right now, I mean, we just have to be aware of these kinds of existential things about rights and, life and so on. So anyway, that's how that goes. Now, for instance, one good example is, let's say you're at a workplace and somebody, the managers, would be the managers, let's say all of a sudden, let's say everybody has a uniform, and all of a sudden they want all the workers to wear a certain symbol on their aprons, you know, and I'm going to look at that symbol and I'm going to decide if I am going to accept wearing this or not, because that's my decision, you know. Nobody can dictate to me that kind of thing, because if I put something on me, it signifies that I'm in agreement with this. If I'm not in agreement, I wouldn't put it on. And that's how it is. Even if you don't agree, if you compromise and cower and do that, you're still agreeing with it in that way. It's still looked at as a denial and a compromise. So we can't do that either. That's why Jesus said, count the cost. There's a cost, see? So I will not wear something on any uniform or whatever that I don't agree with. And that's just it, because that's my person, that's my body, that's my domain, that's my jurisdiction. Nobody can tell me you have to wear this or that. Absolutely not. Or take something off. Let's say it's a necklace. I'm not going to do that either. People realize these are personal rights, and that will not be violated in my case. So that's it. If there's a symbol I don't mind wearing it. Okay, let's say it's just a little teddy bear. I don't know, something innocent. Okay, fine, but I'm not putting on a symbol that I don't agree with, and there are many examples of that. So the answer is no, I will not put that on. So that's an example of this is, like this thing called boundaries, here's me, this is my rights, their rights end here, whoever it is, okay, and vice versa. Okay, so this is the boundary. You need my consent to put something over here based on my autonomy to choose yes or no. Nobody has the right to violate that. That's considered a rape, Again, that's my domain, and I decide if I want this here or not. Nobody has the right to invade my territory in that way. So, it's a question of domain. This is my domain. I get to say yes or no. That's my right, and vice versa, So that's how that whole thing works with that, including many, many things. It applies to many things, but speaking the truth is definitely one of them. So, all that, Okay, so I said all that while not saying what I'm really saying. You know what I mean. Okay, so, yeah, that's the deal, Again, they cannot invade my territory. That's up to me to decide what I'm going to wear, what I'm going to say, what I'm going to do, even think or believe, whatever it is, but also say it and live it out, and, or not wear something or allow something in my area. That's my territory, and vice versa with other people. So that's the boundary line, and many people don't understand this whole concept, you might do that, I wouldn't do it, and that's up to me. So nobody can tell me what to do in that way, and that's a hill for me to die on. Some people are willing to compromise, but some of us, like me, are not. Okay, so anyway, that's it about that issue, or that whole thing, that whole bundle of philosophical ideas about this. Okay, I'll be right back for another one.